so no Josh or Sandy? Louis?
Sandy's here.
Okay.
Saran's here. Menora. Miqdad. So Miqdad's one of our new under-16s players.
Okay, I can see that when I scroll down. Didn't realise they were all.
Yeah.
Right, let's make a start then. Bluey, nothing you want to say up front or jump straight in?
No, just go for it, mate. There's nothing, unfortunately, no real updates from me at this stage. So, yep.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Session 4. For those people who are new, obviously we've done a little bit of our work already, the other sessions. So this is the last of the 4. Lucky last, and with the focus tonight's on bowling. But as normal, we'll do a quick recap of where we were last week, just to make sure that the new skills and knowledge base that we've developed gets embedded. So we might just go through quickly, see how much you remember from last week. Jump in, maybe just pop your hand up on the screen. I might just get full screen up so I can see people. What were some of those key points that we covered off for stance and grip last time around? Anyone jump in? What's a key teaching point you might use with someone when you're coaching? Any hands up there? I'll just jump in. None? How do we...
There are so many in the batting. You were collating information.
What was that, Raja? Sorry?
There are a lot many techniques in the coaching in the last session about batting.
Yeah. So what are in particular about the stance and grip? If you, as a coach, what might you want to focus on?
I would love to focus on number 9.
Yep, the figure 9. Yep.
Number 9, I love it a lot. Drives with 9, and yeah, that would be my focus.
Yeah, okay. So figure 9, they have that in their normal stance, but it's more relevant to the front foot drive, isn't it? That's where
it's front foot drive, yeah.
Yeah, coaching point, yeah. What about the grip? What was the little technique we taught you for teaching someone the grip from, brand new? How do we do that? Yep, the 2 Vs. Rob, I can see your hands there. Do you want to just talk us?
Damn it, he saw me. I was remembering you lay the bat down and pick it up to 2 Vs. Don't grip the top hand too tightly. Lose control. I'm remembering that Coley, Smith, and someone else have the same basics.
Yeah, good. And where the V's on the hands, where roughly would we want them sort of pointing?
Down the spine.
Yeah.
They're saying.
So a little bit to the sides, okay. But what we're trying to do is give them a strong base, so we're not going to inhibit any shots. So if we get a hand that gets round too far and the V's nearly on the underside of the bat instead of the top of the bat, it can inhibit some of the offside play because it's going to drag everything across with a really strong one hand. So little things like that, yeah. And I like the way you said hands sort of in the middle of the bat, but again, it's personal preference. As a coach, you want to find something that works best for your player. Ideally, if they start in the middle of the bat, they can play most shots and they've got a little bit more control than hands right up the top. When we take the hands to the bottom, obviously we get more control, but we don't get as much leverage. So we can't hit the ball maybe as hard and as far. So there's little variations you can tweak, but the sort of middle of the bat with hands touching together with the 2 Vs is probably the standard one. What about the backlift? What are we sort of going to coach? Obviously, there's lots of different ones out there, and they can work in different ways or fashions. But what's the basic backlift that we're, as a guide, if we're trying to give someone some direction?
Hi, Robin Ferdinands. I would say it should point towards the either off stump or sort of first lick sort of area, and not to twist the bat as well as it goes up.
Yeah. So it's coming straight up towards sort of the stump. And what was the little teaching point we could do to help someone get a bit of a feel for that? What are those little tips that we gave you last week? How can we guide them and so they can get a bit of feedback without even need to look where it goes potentially?
Yeah, so to stand behind the batsman.
Yep.
And hopefully that let him do the bat lift, and so that we could sort of hold it, catch it from behind.
Yeah, so placing your hand sort of where you want the bat to go. Obviously, we need to be a little bit careful here. Some of the kids get a little bit, brash and throw that bat backwards really hard. But yeah, just let them know, just a small back lift, just to touch my hand so they can get a feel for where it should go. We can also get a set of stumps, the plastic stumps, pull out the middle stump, angle it slightly, and see if they can get through the two uprights, kicking some goals when they're lifting up that bat in the right direction. So they get some instant feedback. They hit it, they know they haven't done it in the right spot. So look again, try it, and then look away and try and do it again as a little tip. What about, let's talk about the front foot drive and the pull shot potentially. What about the front foot drive? We already talked about the figure 9. What were some of the other key teaching points when we're teaching a front foot drive?
Was it between knee and shoulder and aim in front of square?
Yeah, in terms of direction, yeah. What about the movement? So what are the key parts that need to move to get us into the right position for that front foot drive?
The leg has to move in the direction of the shot or whatever they're pointing to.
Correct, yeah. Okay, so follow through where you want the ball to go. Good. Well, obviously, the first step is to actually move that foot to access the ball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move the foot, yeah.
Yeah. So the head can initiate that, and then the feet can follow. But we want the weight transferring. That's the real key. Weight transfer. Figure 9 through the shot. And what was the last part of the shot? That, it's a bit of old school. We sort of taught it in reverse, I think we mentioned last week. What's the key element we want to be teaching these kids when they're doing the front foot drive?
Oh, I remember this one really well because I'm taking it on board. This is drive first and then block, as opposed to block.
Absolutely.
And then drive.
Exactly.
Follow through, yeah.
Full swing and follow through. When we're teaching the front foot drive, we want power and acceleration through the ball. Okay, absolutely essential. Initially, I don't care where the ball goes, whether it goes in the air, whether it goes to leg side, whatever, as long as the bat's coming through fast and the full follow through, that's the first thing I want to get right. Once they get that right, then we're going to refine it a bit. Just tweak that grip if it's too strong, the follow through, going in the direction of the ball. Definitely want some bat speed. Always teaching bat speed first up. And then we can bring it back to the front foot defensive. Where should the bat stop when we're playing the front foot defensive? Can you remember, Eloise?
Sorry, what?
Where should the bat
Can you remember where the bat stops?
If it's a block, shouldn't it stop like underneath your eyes? Kind of?
Yep. And what about the bat in terms of your front leg? What sort of position is it? Out in front, or is it sort of right next to it or behind it? Where would you say is ideal?
Like the bat right next to the ball.
Yeah, perfect. So it's stopping next to that front pad. Okay, so in the front foot defence, remember it's more the ball hitting the bat rather than the bat hitting the ball. We want the ball to take the momentum off it, potentially just drop it and run. Rather than trying to punch it through the field. Even though it's a good ball, we still want to try and score off it, yeah? What about the pull shot? What are some of the key teaching points for the pull shot?
Shift the weight to the back first, move backwards.
Absolutely. So we're onto the back foot now. We did talk about the new age players not really getting fully back anymore. But we're still going to coach the younger guys to transfer a little bit of weight because we need to actually promote the basics first. The guys at the elite level, what we're finding is they've got such quick hands now, they're propping onto the front foot and just sort of pushing back rather than stepping back. It's completely sort of against what we're sort of teaching, but we want that definitely a little bit of transfer of weight in the younger kids to get the technique right, and then they can play with it a little bit more. Okay. What about the bat path for this one? We talked about figure 9 for the bat path, that shape. What about the pull shot? Are we going? How would you describe it to someone learning the pull shot?
It is not. Sorry, somebody's saying.
Sorry, I was gonna say it's from high to low.
Love it. Yeah. Okay. Do we have to roll the wrist at all in this shot?
No, I think not at the moment.
Yeah.
We just go through that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a double whammy if you do roll the wrist. So we go high to low, and then we roll the wrist again, and then the bat's closed and the ball goes straight into the ground. It doesn't travel horizontally, and it won't travel very far. All the momentum's going into the ground. We want it to travel for 10, 15 yards and then run. Okay, so it's still high to low, so it's not going to get caught by a fielder just outside that length. But we want it to travel horizontally so it can get to the boundary. Then we teach them potentially low to high. We want to hit it over the infield and maybe get a 6. Okay, but generally high to low to start with. What about impact point for the pull shot? Where do we want to hit the ball? Is it close to you? Is it out in front?
It's stretched arms.
Extended arms.
Yeah,
perfect. Yep. Okay. And the analogy we used was the dinosaur arms, wasn't it? They're not very useful when they're short and bent, but when they're fully extended, we can get some good acceleration through the ball and get power. Okay. Excellent. Thanks for the quick revision, people. Much appreciated. You have retained something. That's reassuring. Let's keep going. A quick summary of what we're going to be doing today. So, obviously, session 4, if I can move my little box here so I can see. So, bowling basics today. Again, a little bit of error correction and also just some quick drills to reinforce what we've done as well. So, not too much to get through, just depends on how much talking and questions we get. I think we should go pretty close to the hour anyway to get most people away. Let's see how we go. Famous last words. Right, as per last week, I've got a couple of examples, well, more than a couple. I've got 5 examples of some pretty special bowlers that we've had across the years. Some of you might be familiar with these. So who's the first bloke? Top left.
Mitchell Johnson.
Yep, Mitchell Johnson. Okay. What do you think he was famous for? What was his strength if you had to name one thing?
Apart from the mo was pace and he liked hurting guys.
He did. He was pretty ruthless, wasn't he? Absolutely express pace. Very, very strong action. And the other thing that probably helped him was he wasn't always predictable. He had that express pace, but sometimes he didn't know where it was going either, which made it even more difficult for the batsman. But again,
Robbie, he changed his action too, didn't he, midway through his career? I don't know his action or his run up. I can't remember. It's something he drastically changed.
Yeah, he did. He was a bit more of a slinger, so he actually brought his arm up a little bit taller. He was very low, but what he found is he had good pace, but he didn't have very good direction. And I think Dennis might have worked with him and brought his arm up a bit high, which made him a little bit more consistent in terms of direction. So the release point, it's like throwing. If you throw over the top, straight over the top, you're more accurate than you are sidearm because you don't have to guess the release point as much. You're more likely to be straight. Yeah, you are out there.
It's good to see that it's never too late to change your action and improve.
Yeah, well, we already had probably 100, 150 wickets when he changed his action and got better. So,
he was terrible to play against when he was on form.
Oh yeah. He was the one who can get that ball up around your chin at a good length. Very, very difficult to play. What about the next bloke? Who's that one?
Binger. Brett Lee.
Brett Lee, yeah. And again, what was he famous for?
Pace, hostility.
What was that, sorry?
Pace, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. express pace again. He's probably even quicker than Mitchell Johnson at times, I think, and probably a little bit more consistent. What was he able to do at express pace that a lot of people haven't been able to do?
Swing the ball.
Absolutely. So not many people have been able to swing the ball at sort of that 150k an hour mark, but he managed to have that really perfect release point with the seam, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of the bowling technique. Glenn McGrath, the next one, what's he famous for?
Being a metronome, just being consistently good at pace. Well, decent pace.
Yeah. So he wasn't slow, but he's only in the high 130s, wasn't he, most of the time?
Yeah.
Maybe 140 at his max, but absolutely put it on the dime. To have that really absolute control over the bowling in terms of direction and length. Absolutely fantastic. What about the blonde-haired bloke? Who's that?
Shane Warne.
Shane Warne, yes. And what's he famous for? Besides
the fingers, he magic with the fingers.
Absolutely. He had he was one of the few leg spinners, wasn't he, that had that ability to spin the ball a long way, but also had control. Hasn't always gone hand in hand. I think, Stuart McGill, great spinner of the ball, but did he have that same control and ability to control run rate as well? Different bowler completely to the three above him, but some would argue probably much more effective at what he did. What about the other bloke? He might be on our shores a little bit later this year. Sorry, go again.
Jimmy Anderson.
Yes, correct, for England. Yeah. So one of the only guy really on that page still running around, current player. So that's why I put 632 plus test wickets. Pretty handy. What's Jimmy famous for?
Swing,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And did it at fairly good pace, not quite at Brett Lee, but and also had the ability to move the ball both ways. Swinging the ball away and then able to seam it back. A bit like Glenn McGrath, a little bit.
Depends which ball he's using.
Yeah. Duke ball, definitely a better deliverer of that one than the Kookaburra. That's for sure. All right. But, I think you'd all agree, all very different bowlers, but all very successful. So there's not just one technique, one style, one pace. And that's what we're trying to do as coaches, is help people develop their strengths rather than to try and make them all little robots doing bowling all the same way. The basic fundamentals are the same. We'll talk about those next. All right. In terms of release, the grip for fast bowling, I've got some pictures up here. So I want to talk me through how you describe that to a player. What are we doing with the hand here and where's the ball? Just jump in, guys. Or girl.
You just hold it with your fingers and don't let it touch your palm or root of the fingers.
Yeah, good. I like it. So there's, as you can see in that third picture along, there's a bit of a gap there, isn't there, between the palm and the ball. Now, for young kids, sometimes it's very hard for them to get the gap because their hands are so small. And if you've got a ball there in front of you, just pick up the ball and have a bit of a look. See, check your grip there. What about the fingers? How would you describe the finger position in terms of being on the ball?
Well, initially just one on each side of the seam.
Yeah. And what about the distance apart, mate? How far apart are they?
I don't know, about half a finger's different. Like you basically can only see the center part of the seam. So, yeah.
Yeah. So just the thicker part of the seam is visible, maybe a tiny bit more. But we definitely want both fingers to be resting on the actual stitching of the ball. If we go too wide, what's the issue that we have?
You won't be able to release it.
What was that, Eloise?
Oh, it'll like be a really slow ball and you won't be able to like release it properly.
Yeah, it definitely comes out slower if we get it too wide. Like it, good. And in terms of control, you probably lose a bit of control too, don't you? Because one finger might dominate over the other, where instead, when they're together, they might actually work as a pair, as a team. So we don't want them too far apart. So they definitely don't pull down on the side. Okay. Excellent.
Wouldn't the wider grip be a good variation for a slower ball?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So we won't cover that off today in the basics, but obviously we want our players to be able to deliver different balls. And one of the key ways you can do that is split fingers going wide, or you can put more fingers on the old gorilla grip. What are some of those other ones, Eloise, that we've done with you in coaching? You want to give us some other alternatives?
Knuckleball.
Yep. And you hold it up to the camera. What's that look like?
It's like
You
like it. Where fingers behind the ball.
Yeah. Good. There's also where one finger's on the seam and then the other one's like it's kind of like diagonal.
Yep. Okay, coming across. Yep. Good. Any other ones, people, that you do, different variations on standard grip to do a variation?
It's a mystery every time I bowl, so I don't know. Yeah.
It changes.
Yeah.
What about this one? Hang on, if I can get it on my camera. What's this one called as a fast bowler?
Cross seam?
Yep, good. Seeing more and more that. If you're watching the IPL at the moment, they're playing in those wickets that are really dead, and they're bowling a lot of cross seamers to try and keep the ball to skid low, hit the seam and skid low, yeah? But in terms of basics, when they first start off, definitely start with this, fingers together, thumb underneath the ball on the seam, okay, and fingers on top, slightly apart, all right? At release. Let me just go forward. Okay, so at release, what are we trying to do with our hands? What does the hand do as we let go of the ball as a fast bowler?
Push the ball with your two fingers.
Yep, so you're pushing behind the ball. So I'll see if I can get this on camera. So pushing down the ball. And what happens when we do that? What are we trying to impart on the ball? So letting it go, pushing it out.
Yeah, push back. That's what I'm.
Yeah. So we're dragging our fingers down the back. And as you can see in my little picture there, the third picture, we're trying to actually put backspin on the ball. Now, why is that backspin important as a fast bowler to us?
Reverse swing.
What's that, mate? Sorry?
Is it something to do with reverse swing?
Not quite. I'll talk about that in a minute. Remind me, reverse swing. I'll explain what that is, but not in this instance. The backspin is doing what to this ball flight as it's spinning backwards?
It helps to keep the seam up.
Great. Perfect. So we put backspin on the ball. It actually stabilizes the flight of the ball and keeps the seam in the right position to then allow the ball to swing. If we've got a nice shiny ball or one shiny side, if we keep that seam there by putting a bit of backspin on the ball as we let it go of it, it'll actually help it stay in that position longer, okay? When we get a scrambled seam as we let it go, it's not going to swing, okay? The reason that is, for those guys who studied physics at school, we don't get build up of high pressure on the shiny side with the air going faster over here and pushing it across to the other way. Okay, that's how the swing works. Okay, so that's why we need the seam there to keep the one shiny side or the shiny side in the right position to allow it to swing. Okay, or the seam position slightly angled to create that pressure as well when it's a brand new ball. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah. Now, some of you might have seen the little drill we do to help them do the release. Can anyone describe that drill? Can you remember what drill that might be to teach them how we break it down? Here's a little clue.
Oh, just use your wrist.
Yep.
So,
Andy. So what I'll get them to do to start off with, to practice this releasing the ball, I'll get them just to hold their wrist while they're down on one knee, and I'll get them to flick the ball out, trying to impart the backspin, okay? So we're just using the wrist. So we're getting that feeling of getting backspin on the ball as we let go of the ball with a partner, okay? So we release it to a partner. Then we move the hand to being on top of the bicep. We still cock the wrist and flick it as we were doing before, but now we're actually doing it with a little bit more of an arm motion. And then once they've got that, we actually get them to do it with a straight arm, flicking down the back, and then we'll go to bowling. Okay, so you can break it down so they can practice that release in a nice isolated form, less isolated, just about unisolated, nearly bowling and then bowling. So they can get that feel of actually flicking the ball out and getting the correct release. But it's really important for fast bowlers that you get the release right. Again, don't care where the ball goes, just want to get the release right. So then they can do the other skills and build on that. Okay. Any questions on that? So just to reiterate, so we drag the first two fingers down the back of the ball on release to impart the backspin. You see I've been busy with animations here, people. A bit too much time on my hands. There's more coming too, by the way.
One of the guys at my work who plays cricket recommend the other way to do it is you hold the ball upside down and then you just flick it up to yourself and catch it.
That way?
Try and,
yep.
Yeah, and you're just watching the seam to try and make sure it wobbles just a little bit.
Yep.
And just get that motion going.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the same, basically the same action that you're doing in reverse. So you are dragging your fingers down the ball.
Yep.
And then when you come over, it's just the same thing there. Yeah. Like it. Good. I'll put that in my kit bag, Rob. I'll tell them that was designed by Rob. I won't say which Rob. Yeah.
There you go.
All righty. So teaching the basic bowling action. Now, I'm sure you've all probably seen this or been part of this before. This is how I'd recommend you do it. Now, the first one, it's just really to help them in terms of direction. We're not trying to make every bowler a side-on bowler. It's just what we do to get them all in a similar position to recreate the basic action. Then when they start bowling, we let them do side-on or front-on, depending on how that lands. Okay, but for this teaching the basic action, we just say start side-on, so we've got some sort of reference point. Yeah. Side-on to target, and then you've heard of the little, it's probably an acronym or analogy, small star. So holding the ball, let me grab my ball back. Hands underneath the chin. And if you look at that sort of picture, and I'll show you a little diagram in a minute, more animation because I was getting bored. So that's the small star. So that's the starting position after we get side on, bringing the elbows up nice and high. Then the front arm goes up and the back arm goes down and we make a big star. Okay. So small star, big star. And then the next step is to rock back onto the back foot. So if you're a right-hand bowler, you're getting all the weight onto your right foot as you rock back. If you're a left-hand bowler, obviously you rock back onto your left foot, so reverse, yeah? And that's the rock star step. So small star, big star, rock star. Really easy for the kids to remember, okay? Then we've got to that position, we've rocked back, we rotate the arms forward, and we step after the ball, okay? If they get all 4 steps right, we're going to let them know they're a superstar, okay? So small star, big star, rock star. Wow, you did it really well. You got all those steps right and you stepped after the ball down the wicket. You're a superstar as well, okay? So 4 nice basic steps to get people bowling. And I don't think I've ever had anyone not be able to do that, breaking it down really simply like that. The next transition bit's the harder one where we build in the run-up, and that's where we get a few more issues, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But simple drill to practice this one, just in pairs, opposite someone, small star, big star, rock star, and try and bowl it straight on the full to your partner in front. If you want to put targets in and have a wicket keeper, you can do that. Very simple stuff to get started, but I'm sure you're all more than capable of coming up with 5 or 10 different drills to practice that basic skill to make it easier or harder. Any questions or thoughts on that, the basic bowling action? All good? Yeah.
When I know that's good for sort of the Super 7s and Fast 9s. When do you sort of start phasing that out?
Yeah, I would have thought it's more the Woolworth Blasters, teaching those kids at that sort of level, and maybe Super 7s, anyone coming in new who doesn't have a background. I'd go back to that. If they've got no idea, start with that. Doesn't matter what age, but if they haven't bowled before, give them those basics first. So, but primarily it's the Woolworth Blasters, Super 7s. As they start getting into competitive cricket, then we introduce that sort of 3-step run-up into it as well. So that's the next progression. So that's where I think, the 9s, under 12s are probably progressing to already. But yeah, it's probably the bottom 2 levels. What do you reckon, Bluey?
Yeah, I mean, having said that, Paul might be a testament to this. I think there's some 12s also who, potentially who are just new, just picking up cricket later, who also can get value from this sort of basic bowling instruction and action. So, but you're right. It's beginners basically. Just learning the basics of bowling. But I think what we've learned over the years is that could be, really at any age, because we're encouraging kids to start cricket at any age. So, so it's not necessarily age dependent. It's more developmental stage dependent.
Yep. And I've got, in the girls' cricket program, I've got a 12, 13-year-old girl, I think, who'd never bowled before. So, as long as they're comfortable, get them started. But you'll find, obviously, the older they are, typically the quicker they progress anyway. So, just don't highlight too much to the kids, their peers, and take them aside and sort of do it rather than putting them in a big group. Here's my little diagram for you. That you wouldn't believe how long that took to do, people. I just don't underestimate how long those sort of things can take to get right, just to make that happen. I hope it was worth it. Run-up. Give me some things you want to focus on for the run-up as a coach. What's a good run-up look like? I've got Mitchell Johnson here at a pretty good run-up.
Smooth, straight.
Smooth and straight, Sandy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you do sort of a straight run up?
Because if you're doing sort of coming from a side and straightening up at the last moment, you're sort of losing your momentum, and it breaks down pretty much, and you lose pace and line of length.
Yeah. Direction's harder too if you're having to change direction. Yeah, good. The other thing too, it makes it easier to get close to the wickets. And if you're sort of that stump-to-stump bowler, to get LBWs, Glenn McGrath you can see Mitchell Johnson's in really tight here. Just about all of those bowlers I think I showed you were in pretty close to try and get the best impact in the bowling. Yep. All right, so a nice straight run-up. You can have slight angle, and you probably need a slight angle on it so you're not running into the umpire on the way through, depending on where they're standing. But we don't want much more than a slight angle. Again, horses for courses, if your player can do it without any impact, do we need to change it? Probably not. If he's having problems with direction and line length and consistency, maybe we need to look at it, okay? But don't just change for the sake of changing. What else we're looking for in a fast bowler's run-up, but even to some extent in a spin bowler's run-up? What are you looking for?
Acceleration when you run up.
Sorry, say that again, mate.
Acceleration.
Love it. Yeah, Perfect word for it. Yeah. So we're starting off slow and we're accelerating to just about top pace as we're hitting that sort of pop increase, getting into that delivery stride and jumping. We're nearly at top pace. We don't want to be out of control. So it's not 100%. It's not far off. Okay. But we definitely need to accelerate. And what I'm finding, the kids love that idea of running fast, but they can't maintain it for very long. So what do we need to do with run-ups to help them maintain that pace? What can you do as a coach to help them?
Shorten it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we've done lots of drills with the kids where we get them to run flat out from 10, 15 metres and they're at the same pace as they are from 25, 30 metres. There's no difference. As long as you accelerate hard, you can hit top pace very quickly. These big guys take a little bit longer to wind up, so they have generally a longer run up for rhythm, etc. But if you look at the likes of Bumrah and a lot of the fast bowlers nowadays, they don't have the old Dennis Lilly run. I remember going to cricket and Dennis Lilly was pushing off the pickets at the MCG. What's that, 80 metres? It was just crazy. You don't see that anymore, thank goodness. But some of the kids have excessive run-up, so make sure you get that right in terms of distance. Anything else? We want them to run like an athlete. Yeah?
Yep.
No? Seen some little shakes of head.
What do you mean by athlete?
Well, do you want good running technique to help them generate momentum towards where they're bowling? So instead of the hands running across, do we want them up and down like a sprinter, potentially? And in terms of efficiency, things like landing on the balls of the feet rather than heel toe when we're sprinting. If you look at the good sprinters, they land on their toes. They don't hit their heels at all. They're up on the balls of their feet the whole time when they're running, which helps a little bit of forward lean and momentum gain as well. So basic running technique should also be coached with these kids in terms of helping them get the best out of their fast bowling. So being able to run fast is not only dependent on natural ability, it's also dependent on technique. So the classic example out of all of our bowlers was Brett Lee, who was a little bit robot-like, but everything was moving towards the target with his hands. And as he jumped in, his front arm moved towards the target and he followed that momentum with the bowling arm, actually went towards the target before it came past him and then came back. And he had everything moving towards the target, which meant he could transfer all of that momentum. Okay, so the more things we keep in those planes, moving forwards rather than across the body, losing energy, the better off you're going to be. So look for those basics of running technique as well as the bowling technique stuff we'll talk about. Yeah. All right, so we've got them all here. Gradual acceleration, we nailed that one. I think that was you, Raja, wasn't it, for acceleration?
As Minora.
Minora, sorry. Well done, Minora. Keep those arms close to the body, as I said, and keeping them up and down rather than across the body, driving towards the target. Slightly angled, I think that was Sandy who gave us that one. And the other key thing to help you bowl consistently well is to keep that head, just like we talked about with batting, being able to hit the ball, we need to keep the head still. And if we can keep that head in a good position, watching that spot where we want the ball to go, you're more likely to be successful as well as a bowler, okay, rather than tossing that head around as we're running around everywhere.
Do you have any drills, that sort of stuff? No, Jeff had some he did with the Super Sevens last season, but I didn't get the chance to see what he was up to.
Yeah, so...
Or are we still going through that? Sorry.
Yeah, so I would just get him running in on a pitch, mate, and I would put some cones down to direct the path. So we're going to direct them in nice and close to the stumps, so some cones just out from the stumps, and they have to bowl inside that. You can extend those cones back out on a slight angle so they follow that path. They're not allowed to go too far out. And then you'll also do cones for the follow-through as well. So the first couple of steps are straight down the wicket before angling off as well. So that's the sort of activity I'm doing initially to get them working on that acceleration from the first cone as fast as you can up to that point where you jump in the air but keeping the slight angle and following through. Yeah. Does that help?
Yep.
Yep. Good. All right. So I'm just going to break down the bowling a little bit more quickly. So we're going to talk about the gather. So the gathers from that point where we jump off that foot and get in the air ready to go. So you can see all the different types of gathers here, but they're all pretty significant in the fact that they're off the ground, aren't they? They're jumping. Okay. Now you don't see a lot of this in the kids because they don't have that power yet. Okay. But we do want a little bit of a jump into the air. We don't want to go too high because then we lose momentum and we ain't too far up. Then we've got to come down and we stop and then bowl. All right. So we need to keep the jump to sort of at a level where we can still keep accelerating forward and through the crease, but not so high that we're actually decelerating because we're coming down on a steep angle. Okay. The jump's also very important in terms of the gather phase, that it goes in the direction of the target. So if you videotape your players, you'll probably notice that some of them actually jump out away from the target and then have trouble bowling down leg side because they're jumping away. They're compensating with the angle with the arm and they push out and the ball goes down leg side. So jump in a straight line. In terms of a drill to get this right, draw a chalk line on the pitch or get a bit of masking tape, put it down a straight line, and they have to jump from that line and land on the line and also finish their follow through onto that line. Okay, so we're keeping everything in a nice straight line when we're doing that. We talked about it with Brett Lee in terms of the gather. You can see this, the hands, the bowling hand and starting below shoulder level. And what I'm coaching with most of my kids now is as they jump, both hands are in this position in front of the eyes. And that one goes up, front arm goes up, and this one comes down and around to the bowl. Okay, so both hands in front of the eyes as we jump into the gather. You can see Glenn McGrath's doing it there. Mitchell Johnson's got the bowling hand a bit lower, which is fine. Brett Lee, again, same sort of thing, a little bit lower. But that's sort of what I'm teaching, to get that front arm up and out towards the target. And as I said with Brett Lee, arms moving continuously towards the target while we're running. And then when we get into this position, they're going straight down the target line again. So if you've drawn that line on the pitch, that arm goes straight down the line and the bowling arm follows through straight down the line as well. So it's a really good coaching aid. Any questions on that? Okay. Back foot impact. A lot of stress here on fast bowlers. You can see all that going through Brett Lee's leg here in terms of back foot impact, okay? So we've gathered up and jumped and now the back foot's landing on the ground. You can see why he was so explosive. Have a look at that front leg. He's got a really strong base with the bent back leg, slightly bent, okay? We don't want it collapsing too much, the back leg, because we lose height in terms of the release point, okay? So we want it strong, but it can have a slight bend in there. It doesn't have to be completely straight, okay? Just a natural sort of bend there that Brett Lee's got. And look at that front foot drive. He drags that down really fast, which then drags the front arm over as well. Okay, so that's that real rock back that we're talking about in the basic bowling action. The rock star portion, you can see he's got all that weight back now and ready to power on through. Okay. The other key thing to look for is that the hips and shoulders are in line, both front on and side on, yeah, when you look at them. So you can see he's landing with that hip directly underneath him. And if you look at it from front on, you'd also see that hip is also aligned with the body nicely as well. When you start leaning back one way, we definitely not have our hip underneath the shoulder. So we just want that in a nice, strong upright position. Also in that back foot landing, we're looking for a balanced head high, steady head and eyes level. Most people will have a slight angle just because it's just the way you are when you're trying to get everything coming over. You've got to get your head out of the way. So it does go on a slight angle, but start here. And then as the bowling arm comes over, it angles slightly away in terms of the eyes. Front arm extended and bowling arm low, close to the body of this position. And you can see Brett Lee's done it perfectly. at back foot impact. They're the sort of things we're looking for. Okay. What do you see in this bowling action, coaches? I'm going to ask you a few questions. What are you seeing here? I'll give you a few clues. Can you see this? So that first one, back foot impact. Remember we talked about hip and shoulders align. Would you agree? Yeah, looks good. Yeah. Would you say this is a front foot, a front on action or a side on action as a coach? Or a mixed action? Yep, front on. Why are you saying it's front on?
The fourth one on the top row, he looks relatively front on there, I'd say. But
yeah. There's the very first picture where the line is, gives you a little bit of a clue.
Yeah, the foot's facing forward straight rather than on a 90-degree angle, which is typical of a side-on bowler.
Correct, yeah. So if it's pointing towards sort of fine leg, that's your typical front-on bowling position, yeah? And quite rightly there too, in that as he bowls more, you can see at release, the chest is definitely pointing towards at landing, the chest is pointing towards the bat as well, rather than that front shoulder in the classical side on action. Let's keep going through. Front on action, back foot pointing to fine leg, good pick up, people. Front arm, it's extended up and then pulled towards target and then into side, yeah? So he's done that really well. So nice extended front arm here and then pulling down hard in nice and close to the body, which then drags that back arm around really quickly. What about the rock back? If you have a look at that second row of pictures, or third row, sorry. Nice angle there, isn't there? Yep.
Yep.
Front leg lands in line with back leg, keeping momentum towards the target. Yeah. That's in that top frame here. So we can see if we drew a line on the ground, back foot lands, and then front foot lands pretty much in the same direction, yeah? So it's keeping everything in a nice straight line. And that's what I mean about that hip and shoulder being underneath the bowling action, or the hip being underneath the shoulder. Okay, we haven't talked about that front leg. I talked about the back leg at landing. Front leg needs to be nice and braced. You can see it's strong here, bit of a bend, okay? But then it's bracing and extending, and he's bowling over a braced front leg, okay? That's where the fast bowlers are getting a lot of their power, okay? Because they're extending and coming over hard over that front leg. Okay? So they're the sort of things we're looking for. And then a good follow through towards the target as well, and the bowling arm coming across the body. Typically, sometimes we follow through inside that front leg if we're trying to bowl an in-swinger, but predominantly across the body. Yeah. So a really good breakdown there of sort of the basic bowling action from a front-on perspective. Let's talk about some error correction. Some of the things that you're likely to see as a bowler, as a coach, sorry, when you're doing bowling. A hop in a delivery stride. How many of you have seen this one? Some of you might even have it or had it. So how do we get rid of a hop in a delivery stride if you've had that before? Any success?
I don't know, potentially breaking it down again, reducing the run up down to a minimum number of steps so that if you can recognize where the hop's kind of coming into play, it's normally when they do their normal full length run up. But if you can get rid of it by reducing the steps to 3, 5, 7, whatever it might be, I don't know. That's potentially one way just to reduce the run up and try and work out where it is that the hop's coming in. And I guess getting back to they're doing it, it ends up being a habit, but they're doing it for a reason, because it's they've done it. They've always done it. They've done it initially for a reason, but if you can break it down again, go back to the basics, I think that's how I would try and address it. As long as, having said that, I'm not sure if there's any real, I don't know, if they're bowling the ball at a good pace and with good control, I'm not sure whether I'd necessarily get rid of it unless there was some kind of injury worry.
And it's like anything, isn't it, as a coach? Is it inhibiting something? The main thing they do is lose momentum through the crease. So if you run up and jump off your right foot onto your right foot again and then try and bowl fast, it's not as easy as actually running through in a proper action, a proper delivery stride. So that's what you've got to weigh up, obviously. And, kids get away with things at a younger age, but we want them to set them up for the future too. So if they want to be a genuine fast bowler, potentially want to change this one early. And as Bluey said, absolutely break it down. Okay. And the key thing is to actually, when we break it down to a 3-step run up, we want to make sure that as we jump off one foot, the other foot comes in front of that foot. Okay. So we break it through, we just do a 3-step. So we step with our left foot, we jump. So for a right-hand bowler, we step with our left foot, jump off the left foot, right foot comes past into the delivery stride, land, bowl, and follow through on the 3rd step, yeah? But we always want to focus on that jump and the leg coming through, because when they hop, what they do is it's a little sachet rather than a step through, okay? And they lose that momentum of all that run-up. Again, they might be successful because they're different. Let them go if they don't want to change, that's fine. Let them try it though. And then as Bluey said, do 3 steps. If they get 3 steps, go back to 5. If they get 5, go back to 7. If they miss 7, come back to 5. Try it again, go back to 7 again a little bit later. Don't harp on it too much. They're not going to get it first go, a lot of the kids. Get them at it maybe over a few weeks, keep going over it. The main thing is they need to go away and practice it outside your own training, because they're not going to get it in one go. I've had kids learn it 1 week and come back next week and it's gone because they've spent so much time at the nets practicing. Potentially you're not going to do that in half an hour, whatever you got with them, if that, okay? Mixed action. What do I mean by mixed action?
Is it a cross between side action and front on action?
Absolutely. Yep. Spot on. So if
I think Eloise reckons she's mixed action. So is that an issue?
It can be, yes. As you get less supple.
Injuries.
Yes. So there's a torsional rotation of the back because of the mixed action. That's why we want to try and get rid of it fairly early. So let me just go back to some pictures. All right, so as we discussed before, for the front on action, if you had this foot pointing down to fine leg, but then instead of being front on here, this shoulder was across and they were looking through the window.
So Robbie, what you're saying with mixed action is that the feet and the shoulders aren't corresponding.
Correct. So
yeah. Sorry, we were thinking it was more that it's a cross between a side on action and a front on action, but as long as your feet are consistent with your shoulders, there's no issue. Is that right? Okay.
So as a coach, what we do, if we saw this foot, I'm pointing at my screen as if you can see it. If you saw this foot position, but a side on upper body, I would coach them to bowl a front on upper body to match the feet. We always change the upper body to match the feet as a coach. Much easier to change that rather than change the foot position. Okay. But if you don't change it, potentially as they get faster and put more power through, if they're landing like this and rotating like that across, now we've got rotational forces through the back, and that's where you get stress fractures. I don't really remember, but Brett Lee had that issue. He actually a couple of times had stress fractures, went away and came back as a purely front-on bowler after working with Dennis Lilly for a period of time. He had a mixed action. And it's not uncommon either, but it does start prevailing when you get large workloads, lots of overs bowling really fast. All right, so mixed action. Hips do not match shoulders, e.g. front on feet, side on upper body. Change the upper body to match feet. Again, it's not an overnight fix. I would start off just bowling a few steps, jumping into delivery stride and getting him to look. Let's say they had a problem with being side on, look inside the front arm as they jump and get into delivery stride instead of being in that position. We just bring the arm across and lead for front on chest. Okay. No consistency in line. Could be so many different things here as a coach, but we're going to work through them. So one of the things, I think, Paul, we had some video. You sent me some video on this one, didn't we? Bowling down leg side with Eloise a few weeks ago. How did you go in correcting it, and what did I do to change that?
Well, you would it had to be straight in front, covering the wickets.
Yep.
And you had to pull down as well. Yep. And I'd done that. I was always straightening my arm as well.
Yeah.
So we focused on
But what about your back arm? Yeah.
Yeah, and the back arm close to, so it's kind of tight.
Yeah. So instead, I think in the video, your arm was coming in a bit of an angle across the body there instead of coming straight down the line, wasn't it? So they're the sort of key things: front arm towards target, and then following through nice and tall, so it comes straight down the line rather than at an angle inside or outside, just a bit taller to help them with that direction. So it doesn't matter when they let go of the ball now. They could be short or they could be full depending on where they let it go. But because the arm's coming in a straight line, they'll still bowl straight, but they might be short or full, which is fine. We'd rather them straight than wayward and then short or full as well. Okay. The tip I've given you here works really well. You can do it with a plastic bottle, like a water bottle. Get them to hold the water bottle, and now they've got a visual reference of where their arm path is, or even pull out a stump, hold on to the plastic stump and bowl, and you'll be able to see whether that's vertical or whether it's on an angle out to the side. Okay. Really good visual reference, particularly if you're videotaping your bowling action too. You can see exactly where the path of the arm and the hand is going. Okay, so try that if you've got players who aren't consistent with their line. Bowling down leg side, very similar. Again, arm coming past the vertical. So it's going too far inside, and they bowl across to compensate. The hand gets outside the ball and pushes down leg side. Might also be the fact that they're leaning too much over in that delivery stride. Just straighten them up a bit. But the key thing is to get that bowling arm and the wrist vertical at release. Okay. Any questions? Just a few basic sort of error correction ones there. All good? Yeah. Any other tips that you might do as a coach? Anything I've missed for any of those that you've had and been successful at? Okay. Any questions? We're done.
Good timing.
Anything else you would have liked covered off for basic bowling, or any issues you've seen that I didn't cover in the error correction?
Could you just quickly remind us of the outswing, in-swing grip and where the shiny side should be and that kind of thing? Because I guess that's the next stage. I mean, it's there's yeah, we're dealing with kids who somehow have the ability now to be able to swing the ball, and we want them to be able to do that. So,
yeah, sure. All right. So if you've got a ball in front of you, I want to grab it. So in terms of the outswinger, we'll talk about a right-hand bowler bowling outswing. Okay. So we want this angle the seam. So I'm bowling obviously towards you as the batter. I'm going to angle the seam towards first slip, just a slight angle on there. Fingers are still fairly close together and down the seam. Okay. So slight angle of the seam and the shiny side. I like to think of the shiny side being on the opposite side to the way I want the ball to go. Other people remember it by rough side on the way you want it to go. Up to you, whichever you remember best. But shiny side for me on the opposite side to where you want it to swing. So obviously on the outside for an outswinger. Okay, and we can change the action as well slightly for the outswinger. So to accentuate, it's really the wrist position we do this for. The good fast bowlers just change their wrist position. They don't have to change their arm position. But for kids learning the skill, we go slightly lower with the arm and we come across our body and follow through into that opposite pocket to accentuate the wrist position of being little finger out ahead of the thumb. That's the wrist position we want. Okay, little finger ahead of the thumb, which we accentuate by going lower with the arm. Instead of being normal here, we go slightly lower out to the side and come across the ball. And again, very important, we pull our fingers down the back as we let go of the ball to stabilise the seam for swing. That makes sense for the outswinger. Then for the inswinger, okay, if we look at the ball there, okay, angling slightly towards fine leg this time. Shiny side, opposite side to where we want it to go. Okay, high pressure caused here, pushes the ball across, okay, because it's traveling faster over the shiny side and because of that seam position as well. And the action is slightly different to accentuate it. This time we go higher, close to our ear, okay, and instead of following through across our body, we follow through down inside front leg. So as we land, we follow through inside that front thigh rather than across the body into the pocket, okay? And again, going higher, all we do is change the wrist position now. So if you look at my hand here, at release, my thumb should be ahead of my little finger, whereas before it was that way. Now we're getting it that way, okay? So again, good fast bowlers can bowl the same ball from here just by changing that wrist position. Okay, that's all they're doing to get in swing and out swing. Okay, we also had reverse swing, I think a question earlier, which I forgot to go back over. I'll just talk about that quickly if you want to hang around another minute. So reverse swing is a little bit different again. Okay, so it's when the ball's lost its shine now, it stops swinging. And what they're going to do now is try and make one side of the ball heavier than the other. Okay, and they do that by getting moisture into the ball. Okay, so we're going to put it into the shiny side. We're going to get the shiny side now really wet. Okay, we're going to use the saliva or in the COVID times, whatever we can get, just normal sweat into that shiny side. Now, because this side's heavier, instead of, if we set it up to make it look like an outswinger, shiny side on that side, away from where it was supposed to swing, because it's heavier now, the ball naturally wants to go across that way, and it'll come in with the weight of the ball, a bias now, like your lawn bowls, rather than air pressure, which was what we did with the shiny ball. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's all about moisture into the shiny side for reverse swing once the ball stops swinging naturally. Okay, that's what they're doing in Test cricket primarily now. And if you chew on mints, you can accentuate that even more. I think that's illegal. All bottle tops. That's the other way to do it. All righty, any other questions? All good? All right, we might just go around the room quickly. One thing we've learnt today, Rob, just because you're first on my screen, you want to jump in first?
What would it be? That
I thought the progressing from flicking the wrists, you have to get them to kneel and flick the wrist towards a thing, and then progress slowly towards bowling. I think that's pretty useful.
One, and then bicep.
You can change. Oh.
Sorry, say again?
Sorry, Eloise, did you want to say something, mate?
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't realise I was unmuted.
All right.
All the homeschooling you've done of late, you should know that.
Louis, what's one thing for you, mate?
I think it reminded me, you said exactly the same thing last year, but that kind of mixed action thing and correcting that, I keep forgetting that it's kind of, because I have kind of worked with a couple of kids who I thought have had a mixed action, and it's a good point too, because I mean the first thing they do is plant that back foot, so so then you match your upper body to that foot placement. So that's one thing that kind of reinforced for me, which will be good. I'll keep an eye on the kids on their action.
Yeah, there's a little drill you can do as well, Louis. You get them sitting on a bench or something like that, or even a seat if you don't have a big long bench. If you get them sort of sitting straight there and they just bend forward, there's no stress in that back, right? But if you then get them to sort of twist, feet going one way, then the other way, and you bend, you'll feel a lot of stress through there. And that's sort of what you're generating. If you want to actually get the physical feeling of, that torsion effect in the back, you can do that by having one going the other way. And it's sort of not a natural movement to bend that way while the feet are going the other way.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Paul and Eloise, what would you like to chat about, something you picked up from today?
Well, the drill where you can hold a stump to see, because I think it would really help me, because I got it's not straight.
It'd show it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. You can, with a really long one, you can actually see it yourself. You don't even need a video. You can see it and feel it, can't you? In terms of direction. So yeah, I think it'd be a good one to try. Yeah. Anything for you, Paul?
I never actually knew how you got reverse swing. I've learned something today.
There you go.
Not sure how relevant it is for a Friday night under 14 games, but I've learned something. Thanks, Robbie.
Well, next time you're sitting down with mates watching cricket and you go, I think they're bowling reverse swing. Did you see him put some moisture into the shiny side?
Well, I when you're growing up in England, the ball's always wet, so
yeah,
getting it on one side.
Yeah. Manora, you're next on my list there, mate. What do you got, buddy?
I'd say two things. The first one is I never paid attention to the gather in any bowler, to that matter. So that's something that I learned today, that I want to pay attention and see what it means. And the second thing is the side on and the front on action. Again, nothing that I have been ever paid attention to. Yeah. So two big things for me.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so have a look next time someone's bowling, and it's sometimes you need to get videoed because it happens so quickly in terms of that front foot, the back foot landing as well, and also try looking from side on to have a look at the foot. It's much easier to see it rather than from behind or in front. Check side on for the foot position at landing. Yeah, good one. Sandy, what about you, buddy? You still there, Sandy? You might have wandered off. All right. Who else we got on there?
Yeah, that's it now. We're down to the chosen few.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Really enjoyed your company for the last few weeks, or 8 weeks, really, with the 4 sessions. Appreciate you giving us some of your time, and hopefully that'll give you a few things to work on with the kids and improve their cricket, as well as yourself as a coach. I think there's plans to do a few more things as we get a little bit more information about what's happening with the season. We can plan a few more things ahead, but we'll definitely be looking to continue your coach development journey moving forward. Bluey, anything from you, mate?
No, just I'll be getting some comms out soon, just with the update on the information we have, but we're still working towards a kind of early mid November start to the season, all things going to plan, which will mean hopefully also a training start for that, kind of cup week, if we reach our vaccination targets. So, but yeah, I'll get some more comms out very soon on kind of what we know at the moment, and and a bit more. I've got a bit more of a picture on where the numbers are and all those kind of things. So just keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of work happening behind the scenes. I know Bluey's been working really closely with a lot of the coaches to work out the best sort of setup for some of the teams where we've got big numbers and odd numbers, and lots happening. So hopefully we can hit the ground running when we do get the okay, which is looking like November at some stage, fingers crossed. We can get out there and actually get some training, some cricket, be nice. But in the interim, keep getting down to the nets in small groups, people, the legal groups. Unfortunately, we can't do anything official as a cricket club just yet, but keep the skills up and keep enjoying your cricket.
Yeah.
Before you go, Rob, thanks for the sessions and sharing your knowledge and experience. Much appreciated, man.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Happy to do it.
Thanks.
More than welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks to everyone for giving up your time too. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.